Thank you.
Why don't you tell us, give us some background post at this time?
I'm Lizbeth Benacquisto. It's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to visit and to share thoughts about myself and why I am running. I'm a mother of 2 children. My son Austin is 15, my daughter Gabriella is 11, and I have a stepson AJ who is 23. So a wide variety of interest and activities for our family. And I had the great privilege to serve on the Wellington City Council for 8 years.
Okay.
I just finished that service in March of this year. It was a wonderful privilege to be trusted with the voters, to have the voters put their trust in you. And I learned a lot about the governmental process and about Tallahassee, and over that 8 years saw much that I did not like about what was happening there, the way our dollars were prioritized, and the way the decision-making process happens. So when it came time for Senator Ehrenberg to move on, I felt very strongly, you like this, I felt very strongly about offering my name to be considered. And I think that at this moment in time, to have a person with local government experience and governing in the worst times that we've known, I think that is a very valuable voice in Tallahassee at this moment. So I've been campaigning for a year. It's been an incredible experience. I've put 50,000 miles on my car, a couple of new sets of tires, and just had to get new brakes this afternoon.
How are you campaigning? Door to door, or speaking at? Tell us.
I love the door-to-door, and we do that every weekend. Our maximum, our record to date is about 300 doors on an afternoon.
Who's we?
My team. We have a really strong group of grassroots folks who just want to come out and help, believe in my candidacy, in me, and we've been welcome in every neighborhood that we've went to. All of us in our red T-shirts, just meeting good folks.
What are they telling you? What are the people saying after you knock on the door?
They're really thankful that I care enough to come by. That's really what you get from them. It's an acknowledgement that there are troubles out there and that you want to hear their perspective on it. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest with you, most folks say, have you been to Tallahassee? Do you serve there now? and I share that I have not. And they say, overwhelmingly the consensus is it's a really good thing. And sharing that local government experience with them, they know that I understand what their concerns are every day from serving so close to them. So,
but there are no particular concerns they mention as first and foremost?
Certainly it's the economy. People are very concerned about the challenges in the marketplace, whether or not there are going to be new jobs, whether it's affected their family personally, their neighbor, or their children. The economy and the job situation is priority number one. The unemployment rate now in Lee County has spiked to 13%. It's top of mind for folks.
What can you do as a legislator to tackle that?
There are a lot of things we can do, and that's what engages me so much about the race and the opportunity to serve. We have the opportunity to offer tax incentives and to streamline the government approval process so that people can invest here quicker. And when we're competing with other states for a company's business or a company's flagship office, if they can open a door in another state in 6 months, they're not going to come here when we ask them to make it take 3 or 2 years. So speeding up the process is one, with the appropriate controls and environmental input, certainly important. But the number one killer of investment now in Florida is time, in my opinion.
Explain tax incentives, though, in the business setting. Is this the local property tax that's going to take, is that the incentive that's going to take away from the local government, or is it the state sales tax, or what or a corporate?
Well, you're seeing it here in Naples with Jackson Labs and the incentive package that's being offered by the county to invest $130 million in bringing Jackson here. You had a great announcement this morning about USF, and it's those partnerships that are going to
But I think
really
if you'd knock
entice.
on some doors in Cuyahoga County, you'd find a lot of people saying, wait a minute, we don't want to spend $130 million of our tax money to bring this.
That is a local decision, and the number will be decided by the county commission about the level of their investment. But I do believe people understand that in order to incentivize new companies to come here, there is an investment that needs to be made on behalf of government. And whether it's
But
shortening the
again,
time.
I'm a business and I'm trying to decide between Georgia, Florida, and North Carolina. What type of tax incentive would you propose that the state of Florida or local government in Florida offer me to come?
Well, some entities are offering a waiver of taxes for a certain period of time,
What-
depending.
Again, what type? Is that the property tax that I'm going to pay the county or the city of Wellington?
Well,
Or-
cities don't have the ability to waive taxes like that.
Or Palm Beach County?
You could do a mix. It really depends on the type of employer, the range of salaries that'll be offered by the company, the timeline with which the company will grow, and you'll realize the maximum impact from your investment. But there are multiple tools. There's no one right answer. I think it's going to take a
Do you
effort
risk-
by all entities.
Do you risk any anger or angst from existing businesses that don't get the tax incentive that might be offered to somebody new coming in?
Well, you have to balance that for sure, but the truth is, government's responsibility is to spend its dollars wisely, to spend your dollars wisely, and if we do a better job of that, we can lower the tax burden on existing businesses at the same time. And that must be done.
You're from the Palm Beach, West Palm Beach area.
Yes, sir.
And you've had some pretty up close and personal hard looks at some of the research endeavors that have come to Florida, some with local tax support. In your opinion, based on what you've seen on the ground, is this a good investment?
I think the investment in biotechnology and research of that nature is a sound investment for our future.
And why do you think that?
It isn't an overnight fix, for certain. The investment of the initial company and the spin-offs takes years. But when you create a framework for those businesses to thrive in the community and to have a synergy with other ones located nearby, then you create a real framework and roadmap for success in the future. And it comes with planting seeds that may take a year or two to grow, but we have to do it.
Do you sense anything that you would categorize as buyer's remorse from Palm Beach County officials for the money they've invested?
No, I think there is some longing for having built at Mecca, because the Mecca site, which was larger, and I'm sure you're familiar with that it was larger and provided more opportunity for growth in related industries in the future. But the model that they've presented and are implementing in Jupiter is working.
Can we run down some state issues real quick? Start with immigration. Your thoughts about a current drive to draft or at least review some type of legislation similar to the Arizona law?
I would support that. As a legislator, I would, and if it hasn't been filed by the time I get there, I do believe Senator Bennett has filed a bill already, but I will support that wholeheartedly.
How about offshore drilling in state waters from 3 to 10 miles or whatever the state boundary is? And again, as we're taping here, the governor's special session was short-lived yesterday. Your thoughts on offshore drilling?
The focus for our state right now is the cleanup effort and making sure that claims for affected businesses and families are expedited, and that we have a process that makes sure that the other rigs that are out there are operating safely and are being inspected. I'm not going to support offshore drilling in the future, because as I was driving over here, realizing how special a place Naples is and the entire coastline, the sun shines everywhere in Florida. It touches every bit of Florida, but the coast is our most valuable asset, and I will work to protect it.
How about in terms of education and specifically Senate Bill 6, which was passed and then vetoed? Your thoughts on teacher tenure, merit pay for teachers, and anything else that will likely be in another bill that will hit the legislature next session?
Education is a huge passion for me. Having young children and being a product myself of the public school system in the state of Florida, it is one of our additional great assets that we would have an education system.
Was that a
that is
bill
so
you
strong.
would have voted for?
It had many flaws.
Okay.
It had many flaws. But to your question, I support merit pay.
Okay.
And I believe in rewarding the absolute best in teachers. And I want to use the issue of merit pay, the tool of merit pay, to recruit the best teachers.
Mm-hmm.
That's how our system will improve over the coming years, and that's an important element.
Can you tell us a little bit about the city of Wellington, the size of the budget, the type of government that you worked on as a council member?
The City of Wellington is something, my service there and the community itself, I'm very proud of the community. Probably about 56,000 or 7,000 residents now. We had some attrition due to the economy. But we have a city manager, council city manager form of government, and the budget that we last approved was, gosh, I don't want to misquote the number, but it was less than $100 million, probably about 80. And over the years, we did experience a lot of growth in the community. Our population doubled from 24,000 to our peak of 58,000 in just a few years when you look at it historically. And I think we did a really good job of protecting what was special about our community. Our rural communities, we had an overlay put in so that folks could stay as equestrian and rural as they wanted, no street lights, no paved roads. And we balanced that with the burgeoning need for parks and recreation facilities and our aging population and their needs. We've just embarked on some really neat initiatives. We just built the playground for disabled kids that was built with donations from a family, a new amphitheater that was built with county dollars, a new city hall. There are lots of things to be proud of, but it's a very strong and close-knit community. It's primarily a bedroom community, but we did a lot of work in the last few years to change the dynamic so that we would have more of a tax base than relying solely on property values, ad valorem taxes.
What sorts of things did you do?
We created a medical arts district. We have 2 hospitals, one officially in Wellington and one that's just outside Wellington. Strong medical community. So we looked at what our strengths were as a community and felt like investing in medical arts was a very good roadmap for our future. We will have a medical school there. LECOM, Lake Erie College of Medicine, is going to open up a branch in Wellington. It's a project that I worked on. We got Palm Beach Atlantic to build a branch campus in Wellington, and we'd like to continue. I know my colleagues who've taken over my spot on the council would like to continue our push for higher education in Wellington. But a great community. Home to the International Polo Club, very strong recreation programs, very good quality of life, was just recognized by Money Magazine as one of the top places in the country to live. One of 3 in Florida, so I'm very proud of that.
Earlier you mentioned that during your tenure on city council, you learned, quote, so much about Tallahassee that I didn't like. Can you go into a couple examples?
Well, there is a top-down mentality that Tallahassee knows best, and the decisions that they make there, we should just all accept. And I believe in local control, and I'd like to have a stronger local voice in the process, and reminding whoever is serving there, hopefully my colleagues, that we are all interconnected as governmental agencies, and we need to do a better job working together in the future. And there are one of the things that I did not like that happened, it's been fixed somewhat, but Tallahassee saw fit to take local governments out of the advocacy process, that you could not spend advocacy dollars for or against a certain issue. It has been adjusted in some small measure, but those policies should not be enacted in the first place without local government input.
A lot of local elected officials in Collier County would agree.
Yes, sir.
You talked about streamlining permitting for business. From what I've seen, it does seem like some of the local governments are the ones who add a layer because they have their own standard, their own requirements, and of course their own fees. How would you deal with that as part of the streamlining problem?
Well, we should have a one-stop permitting agency, department stop along the way, so that if you want to invest in Florida, whatever the community is, your approval process, whatever the agency, is happening concurrently. So everyone is looking at your documentation at the same time. Otherwise, I'll send it to you for review, then you make changes, and then it goes along the process, and by the time you get to the end, you've expended years and many dollars that could be better invested in the community, and a lot of times we lose folks because of that timeline. I don't want to change the process such that it changes the quality of the review. I just want it to happen in a more efficient manner.
You talked about the schools and what we need for education. Do you have children in the public schools?
Yes, ma'am. My daughter is entering the 6th grade. And I'm a card-carrying member of the PTA, and will be the PTO as she enters middle school. But I value very much the public school system and the parents who are involved and those organizations that give voice to the concerns for our kids. And I think the best thing we can do is to invest in public schools so that we have the best in the nation. That's what I want one of my look-backs to be when I end my service in Tallahassee, is to say, we've made it #1.
Has the legislature done right by the local school districts in terms of the class size amendment?
I think what is going to appear on the ballot, to have a school-wide average, is the best model. It provides for flexibility in the school, and will still meet the standards by which we push the button as voters to want a reduced class size.
If it happens to not pass, what's Plan B?
I think we try again, because the burden financially on creating new classrooms and schools for a 19th child or a 22nd child is a burden we can't bear in the system right now. I'd rather those dollars be spent on quality teachers and quality programming. And let's face it, quality technology for our kids who are so wired. They should be learning in the exact same environment they live at home. And I want to see that happen.
Have you given any thought to what committee appointments you would like or would request if elected?
I'd certainly like to be involved in education, and I'd like to be involved in the select committee for the economy, because it is priority #1 for me to be involved in the process, visioning for our future. And healthcare is of great interest to me as well, because of the aging population, the challenges that we face today with regard to servicing the needs. And by all estimates, that's going to double in the next 5 or 10 years. And I might be wrong on that exact percentage, but it is going to be a even larger segment of our budget and our concern going forward. So healthcare, probably.
How do you feel about the state of Florida filing suit against the federal health care bill?
I support that.
Okay.
I do. I think we're right to stand up and assert states' rights there. I don't believe that's the federal government's job to do it in the manner in which it was handed down.
Then where does the state come in and fill in that gap?
Well,
what happens?
Specifically your question, I want to make sure I answer it properly.
What happens if the federal plan is ruled unconstitutional? What does the state do in that case? Are we okay with what we currently have?
No.
Does the state need to step up and do something or operate in a different manner?
Well, the pilot program that's being looked at now, that's been in operation, that was considered during the past session to be expanded, I think is a good model for us to view the lens of Medicaid reform and try to get a handle on those expenses to operate more efficiently, root out the fraud that's happening in the system and overbilling. And I think that's a good model. I'd like to see us proceed down that path. We have to contain those costs and provide best quality of care for patients at the same time.
Do you have any thoughts on the higher education system, the state university system and the community colleges, some call them state colleges now,
Yes.
on how, well, I'll just leave it like that. Do you have any big picture thoughts on how that should go?
Big picture is I want the best for our students. And I can honestly say I'm selfish. I want the best because those students represent the future of our state. I want them to remain in Florida when their education is completed. They will go on to be the business leaders. They will go on to be the future elected officials. And they'll go on to be the entrepreneurs that we're searching out now. And we have to be mindful of keeping tuition in line so we can keep kids in Florida. And we have to be mindful of giving flexibility to the system so that they can continue to grow.
Talking about growth, should each university in the system be allowed to set its own course in terms of what direction it wants to go, whether that would be specializing in undergraduate work, specializing in environment, in research? Should each university with its own board of directors get to make that call?
I think they present the most compelling statement for where they want their institution to go in the future. But it has to be a statewide dialogue because we cannot allow too much duplication of services because there is a state check that follows those students and that goes to those institutions. We can't afford too much redundancy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I think as part of that dialogue that we have, they can come together and vision where their institutions want to go and then support one another as they chart that course. I think that's the best system.
Because from time to time it appears, an outsider it appears, as if some of the higher echelon schools protect their turf. Specifically, I'm thinking again of research and the dollars that can come from research. That they protect that turf against smaller schools muscling in on the action, even though those smaller schools might want to and might have the endowment to do that.
That's why I think the statewide dialogue is important. And the little smaller institutions whose students choose to go there for a variety of different reasons, maybe because of smaller class size, maybe
Mm-hmm.
because of proximity to their home, should have the opportunity that students at a larger school may have. So that's a dialogue for the future.
Do you have any thoughts on state scholarship programs keeping pace with increases in tuition?
Well,
How about that?
Bright Futures
Yeah.
is a challenge going forward. And there has to be a balance to the system because as tuition increases, the system can't sustain itself. I want to be sure that the students who are most in need have access to the dollars, most in need from a financial perspective. And if you raise the standards a hair so that it's a little bit more in line with the increase in test scores and increase in GPAs, that students have to work just a little bit harder to earn the scholarships, you might get a better balance. But I don't want to do anything that takes those dollars away from the most financially needy of students.
Well, as a legislator, would you put a priority on keeping Bright Futures on pace with tuition increases?
I'm going to put a priority on keeping Bright Futures stable so that it's a viable option for families in Florida.
City officials here tell us they're, facing something they call a pension crisis, whereby I think it's mostly police and fire department pensions just aren't sustainable. The promises made in the past maybe were too big. Do you face something like that in Wellington, and does the legislature have a role in correcting that?
We don't in Wellington because we are part of an MSTU for our fire services, and we contract with Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office for provision of services. as a standalone agreement in addition to what we get from the county. There has to be a dialogue between all of those entities and the state about moving forward. There may need to be created a two-tier system for keeping what current employees have and creating a new system for future employees. To create a system that's sustainable is our responsibility.
So if I'm a state employee, a teacher perhaps, if I'm 20 years into the pension program, I stay, rules don't change for me.
To
But
be
somebody
clear, yes,
coming
sir.
in,
Yes, sir.
the rules would change.
Yes,
to
and
keep things solvent.
I want to be very clear about that, because if you've invested your time in a career of public service, many times for lower wages, you should be, that promise should be honored. And I wouldn't change the current system. But moving forward, we are all about being, I am very focused on being financially solvent and fiscally responsible, and we have to design a system that allows us to get there.
Back to Wellington,
Yes.
so terms are 4 years for city council, I'm
Yes, sir.
assuming?
Yes,
So
sir.
you ran for 2 terms. Why not a third?
We have term limits.
Okay,
We have term limits, and I believe in term limits.
okay.
My first election to the council was by 4 votes. I was a
Wow.
young mom, raised $3,000.
Do they run by district there, or?
No, at large.
Okay.
At large.
How many
Raised-
members?
Every vote counts.
Every vote count. I firmly believe every vote counts.
How many members on city council?
5.
Okay.
5.
What advice do you have for voters who would see you and we have two primary opponents, but one of your major opponent? How do you tell them what sets you apart, or what they should take away as they hear you speak, and to try to decide which one of you to support? Well, what's the difference?
I'm a very respectful person, have been the entire campaign, and I have great respect for anyone who puts their name on the ballot. But the difference is clear. My primary opponent in the August 24th election is Tallahassee. Has served there for a number of terms. Has over the last year on the campaign trail spoke about their experience, their knowing the process, knowing the game, knowing the players. That's not what we need now. What we need now is someone who is outside of the process, outside of the influence, outside of the game, so to speak. And if folks will trust me with their vote, I will be the voice of a local community, their neighbor. And my whole life in public service has been with a servant's heart and been with a focus on doing the right thing and providing a clear path for a strong future. So I asked for that support, and we'll work hard to win the August 24th primary. But that is the striking difference. It's
Okay. How will you work to maintain close relationships with your Lee County constituents, even though things are pretty well spread out?
The district is very manageable, despite its diversity of geography and time. It's not a far drive when you make it often enough, and I've rented a home here and will continue to do so if I'm elected. You, as the electorate and folks in Lee County, deserve to have someone who's in and out of their supermarket, in and out of their parks and recreation system, in and out of their lives on a very continual and normal basis.
Let me make sure I understand. So you've rented a home in Lee County.
Yes.
You'll continue to spend most of your time in Palm Beach County.
Well, most is probably going to be dictated by the schedule, and I have spent
Wow.
an incredible amount of time here campaigning, and we'll do the same
We
once
have
elected.
an office
Yes.
that I can go to in Lee County?
Yes, you better. You better come on by.
Good. I'll be by.
I suspect you will, and I'll look forward to it.
We're running out of time, or our clock's winding down. What haven't we asked you about that is a passion that you want to tell the voters about?
I just
Or
want
did we hit
folks.
everything?
I think you did a very good job of hitting on all the issues that are important to residents right now, and in the spectrum of being a state legislator, I think you've touched on them all. and everything that we've heard over the last year on the campaign trail, I just like to share with voters, folks that are going to watch this tape and will make a decision about who to vote for, that I firmly believe in the citizen legislature. I firmly believe in folks coming to the process with a new perspective, and I will focus my term on creating jobs, making it easier for families to live in these communities because they're so unique and wonderful. And I will do my darndest to cut government spending and make the burdens that are placed on taxpayers less. And it is for those reasons and just my humble offer of service to folks that I ask for support.
Thank you. We're out of time.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
you
you.
making the trip.
Thank you.